Hi, my name's Molly and welcome to my bookish corner of the internet. Hi and welcome back to my channel. If you watched my last video, you'll know that I said I was going to uni pretty soon and I'm actually moving tomorrow, which is bloody terrifying. Typically, I go tomorrow and I've left packing my books until today, so well done me. I'm just really nervous about having to decide which ones to take and which ones to leave. Of course, I can always swap them at holidays and whenever I come home, but to start with, I'm so scared and I need as many comforting things as I can possibly have around me, aka books. So I thought that I would make a little video out of deciding which ones I'm going to take. So, you've actually joined me by my TBR shelf. I keep the books I've read here and the books that I haven't read here because I find it really helpful to have my TBR and my read shelves separate. This is my TBR shelf and I know that I want to take as many TBR books as possible, but I know that I also want to take books that I've read before and are old favourites just to comfort me when everything's really different and it just makes me feel better. The problem is I don't know the read ones that I should take. I don't know whether I should take old favourites that have been read a million times, or I don't know whether I should take ones that are the beginning of a series that's just come out and the second one's going to come out soon and I'm going to need to reread the first one before I read the second one. Or I don't know whether to take books that I've read a million times and they aren't my favourite books, but they make me giggle and they're light-hearted and I enjoy them. Like, I don't know whether to take my entire Harry Potter collection because I have billions and billions of copies of each book. But even if I just took one of each, then I've actually got them on Kindle as well, and then they're taking up bookshelf that potentially could be other books when I could reread them on my Kindle if I want to. But also I don't know how I would ever live in a room that doesn't have the Harry Potter books, and that makes me sad. I thought we'd start with something easy, and I'm going to start with my TBR shelf. This is my TBR jar. It has all of my unread titles in, and I normally pick a couple each month so that I get stuff on my TBR shelf that I wouldn't prioritise otherwise. Because I want to take this to uni, it means that I also need to go through this and sort out what books I'm actually taking with me so that I don't pull out a name and not have the book with me. I'm going to go through this and find the ones I'm really keen on reading soon so that I can prioritise their shelf space. I'm going to force myself to be really picky and only pick a few at first so that I have room to pick a couple of others that I still want to read and a few old favourites as well. Before I start pulling loads of books off it, I thought that I would show you my TBR shelf. So the ones up here are literally just up here because they don't fit down here. So we have all of these ones. Yes, you're right, that cat bookmark is adorable. And then we have the ones in here. And in here. And down here. And then I also have a couple in here because they also don't fit in there. I finished going through the TBR jar, and when I was going through it I set myself a few rules. One, anything I've read has to come out, obviously. I haven't updated it in a while, so I have read a few of the titles that were in there, so I took them out and got rid of them. The other thing about my TBR shelf is it actually holds a few things I read so long ago that I don't remember reading them, so aka a few early Neil Gaimans I read that I really want to reread, so I actually have them on my TBR shelf to remind me to reread them at some point because I vaguely remember them but not well enough, and as he's my ultimate fave and there are a few others like that on there, I feel like I should know it better. I also had a few duplicates in the jar, so I also took those out because I don't need to have a book in there twice. 2, anything that's on my Kindle I took out because I always have a Kindle book open on my phone just so I can read it, so I tend to go through a lot of books and I don't necessarily pick them out. 3, anything I didn't immediately recognise or ring any bells I put aside because I clearly wasn't that interested. I buy a lot of books from charity shops, and so sometimes I pick up titles that I don't recognise or I'm not interested in just because they're 25p. I'm sure lots of people have been there and it's something I really need to stop doing, so I don't really want to take any of those with me if I can avoid it. So I've sorted the ones I've picked out into categories so that I can show you them more easily, but also I can think about them to myself and think about if I really want to take them. The first category is actually books I've already packed because they were at my dad's house, so I've just packed them. So the first one is the one I'm currently reading, which is just in my bag obviously, and that is My Lady Jane. I want to finish reading that obviously, and then I'm also bringing the sequel My Plain Jane. And then I also already packed A Curse So Dark and Lonely, which I think is a Beauty and the Beast retelling that I picked up a while ago, and I do enjoy a good retelling. The other thing is I'm a mood reader, so I'm trying to predict when I'm going to be in the mood to read. I know in sort of as it gets to autumn and winter I prefer to read fantasy and retellings rather than contemporaries, but I also know that I'm going to be stressed doing a lot of work and contemporaries are going to be easier to pick up and put down. Another category I'm taking a couple of, but not many, is a collection of short stories. I don't always love them, but these are both by Neil Gaiman, so I'm hoping I'll be okay. The first book I picked for this category is Trigger Warning by Neil Gaiman. I actually haven't read this, I know, shocking, but I'm hoping it'll be good, and I'm hoping that it'll be easy enough to read one story and then put it away for a while and read another one if I want to, and I think that'll be a really good thing for uni. The other book I picked for this category is The View from the Cheap Seats. That is really hard to say. It's autobiographical from Neil Gaiman, I believe, but it's actually got my dad, so I need to remember to pack it before I go. The next category is historical fiction. I'm not a massive fan of it, but I've picked a couple so that if I'm in the mood to read it, I'll have a couple there and I won't be disappointed that I didn't bring them. The first book in this category is All the Light We Cannot See. I have owned this for absolute years and I'm just never in the mood to read it. I think it's quite intimidating because the font's quite small and I know it's quite like a hard-hitting book, so I want to give it the attention it deserves, so I want to be in the right mood to read it, but if that mood strikes me and I don't have it, I know I'll be really annoyed at myself, so I'm going to bring this one. The second book in this category, and the final book in this category, is Alex and Eliza. This might be a bit of a cheat because I know it's mostly about their romance, but technically it counts, so I'm going to throw it in here. The next category is mystery slash thriller. However, one of them is not really mystery, but I'm putting it in here just to count. The first book is The Colour of Lies. This is about a synesthesiac, someone who has synesthesia. I'm interested in this because I also have synesthesia, so I see words as colours. And this is about someone being murdered, and then the girl tries to figure out who the murderer is based on like the sound or the colours of the words or something. I think it's the colours, obviously. But I'm really interested in this, which is weird because it's not something I'd be really interested in typically, but I bought it for a buzzword-a-thon, readathon, the Lies one, obviously, and then I never got around to it, so I'm going to give this one a shot. The second book in this category is A Study in Charlotte. I love the TV show Sherlock and I love the movies, but I've never read any of the originals. However, I think it was Hayley and Bookland that recommended these, and I found one in a charity shop, so I picked it up, and I feel quite desperate to read it. I know it's not actually a mystery, but it is also a mystery, but I've just heard that it's quite funny and it's a good gender bend, and I'm always down for that, and I'm always down for kind of like a modern retelling thing. Overall, I've just heard this is like a really good quick read, and I think that'll be really good for me when I start uni. The next category is probably the biggest, but it's also probably the most varied, and that is contemporary. The first book is The Astonishing Colour of After. Everyone and their grandma recommends this book, and I've heard that it's obviously a hard book to read, but it's a really good book to read, and I think that having the option of a contemporary I can really sink my teeth into is perfect. The second book in this category is This Adventure Ends. I read Foolish Hearts by Emma Mills probably a year ago, and I absolutely loved it, and I now feel the need to read everything she's ever written, so I'm bringing this, and I also just enjoy the cover. So it'll be nice to have in my room. The next book I'm bringing is Lola and the Boy Next Door. Unpopular opinion, I didn't think Anna and the French Kiss was that good. I kind of hated it, but I found this in a charity shop for like 25p, so I picked it up because I've heard this one's a lot better anyway, and I think if I'm just in the mood for a light, fluffy romance that I can just really read quick, this is kind of the perfect book for that. The next book I've picked for this category is On the Come Up. I loved The Hate U Give, obviously, and the Waterstones editions are really pretty, so I like to keep them together, which means I'll probably also bring The Hate U Give. But I just think this will be a really good one to, again, have a contemporary that's a bit different and not just like a fluffy romance, so that I can just read that if I'm in the mood for it, because I'm trying to keep all my bases covered. The next book is What If It's Us. This obviously hit BookTube a while ago, but I never got round to it. However, if I'm in the mood for some queer shit as a queer girl, I need my queer love romance thing. So I need to have it with me in case I suddenly feel the urge to pick this one up. The last book in this category is From Twinkle with Love. Obviously, like everyone else, I loved When Dimple Met Rishi. However, I've heard this one isn't as good, but I'm still going to take it with me in case I happen to enjoy it, and I'm quite excited to read it, even though I've, again, owned it for a while. Whoops. So the final category is obviously fantasy. The first two I picked for this category are actually in the same series, hence why I picked both, and that is Siege and Storm and Ruin and Rising, obviously in the Grishaverse trilogy. Is it the Shadow and Bone trilogy now? It's changed, right? I've only read the first one, which I have a different cover for, which is going to bug me, but it'll be fine. But I never read any more, and I think I read the first one a couple of years ago, and I've just never continued, so I'm going to take them with me, and also because These spines are really pretty. The third book in this category is Heartless. I love Alice in Wonderland, but I've only just found this, so I'm really excited to read it. And then the final book that I pulled from the TBR jar is A Blade So Black. Obviously, it's also an Alice in Wonderland retelling, so if I'm rolling on some steam from Heartless, I can also pick this one up, or vice versa. I think this one's a much more like high fantasy kind of thing, which in winter I know I'm more in the mood for, so I think this one is a really good one for me to take. Okay, sorry about the change in angle. We are now in front of my red shelves, but I just want to quickly go through my TBR shelves and check that there's nothing that I really want to take that was either not in the TBR jar or I just missed. So one thing that wasn't in the TBR jar that I really want to take is Vicious. I only recently got this from a charity shop, I think, but I've been really excited to read it, but I'm also quite aware that it's scary and that doesn't tend to be my thing, but it's October and Halloween soon, so maybe I'll be in the mood for it. I'm also going to go ahead and take any Neil Gaiman off of this shelf because I want to take my entire collection. So I've pulled American Gods, which is one of the books that I've read before but read so long ago that I want to reread it. And in the same vein, Good Omens. I recently binged the TV shows and I could remember some of the books but not enough that I was happy with, and I just really enjoyed the TV shows, so I'm excited to reread these. Another book that I missed on my first pass through the TBR shelves is The Smoke Thieves. I think this is by Sally Green. Yeah, and I originally picked it up just because this is really pretty. But it does seem like this is really going to be my thing, and if I'm really in the mood for some fantasy, this is one I really need to have with me. Because I really want to read all of Emma Mills' books, I'm going to go ahead and take all of her books off the shelf as well. Okay, so I only have First and Then, so I think that must be all the books she's released if I've read Foolish Hearts and I've already pulled This Adventure Ends. And then I also have First and Then as well, so I can always read some Emma Mills if I want to. The last book I'm going to take is A Girl Called Shameless. I loved the first one and I actually picked it up on a complete whim on a school trip to Oxford. I needed something to read on the way home and I'd already finished my book, so I just picked it up because I thought the cover looked cool, and then I ended up absolutely loving it, so I picked up the sequel as soon as it came out. That leaves me with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 22 books, which is quite far off the number I wanted. Well done, Molly. But I'm really happy with this choice, so I think that's fine. So the next thing I'm going to do, if any of these books are part of a series, I'm going to grab the rest of the series that I've already read so that I have complete series on my bookshelves, because I think that'll make me feel more comfortable in my room. I'm also gonna, if I want to take an entire author, I'm gonna pick up the ones I've already read and remember so that I can take those as well. I'm going to quickly sort through these books and work out which ones I want to take all of that author or are part of a series. So we have Emma Mills, Neil Gaiman, we have the Shadow and Bone trilogy, so I want to find the first one. I'm considering taking the Dark Shade of Magic books, if I know where they are. There's a lot of shelf room that I could use, so I'm not sure. I'm going to put this in a maybe pile. More Neil Gaiman, also Terry Pratchett, but I'm not going to take my other Terry Pratchett books. I'm going to pick up the first of this one. I think I might take the Luna Chronicles because it's one of my favourite series of all time, and I'm in the mood to reread it soon, so I think I'm going to grab that as well. I'm tempted to grab When Dimple Met Rishi, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to also put that in a maybe pile. I don't think I'm going to take the rest of Becky Albertelli's books because I like them, but they're not my favourite thing ever. I think I'm probably going to take The Hate You Give just because it goes really nicely with this one. I'm not going to bother taking Anna and the French Kiss. More Emma Mills and more Neil Gaiman. Okay, so scratch that, I actually found another TBR book I want to take. It was on a different pile. I'm going to take A Sorcery of Thorns as well because I didn't love the first book, but I liked it enough to be interested in this one, so I'm going to bring this one as well. So in going through my red books, I found loads more books I want to take, and I've just discovered that I just don't want to leave any of them. But obviously I have to. So the first book I grabbed is Shadow and Bone so that I can finish this trilogy. And then I've also grabbed Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom because I've actually read both of these, so I read them before I read that trilogy, so I think I would quite like to take them, but it depends how many books I have by the end. And I'm feeling it's going to be a lot. So then I also grabbed Foolish Hearts by Emma Mills so that I can have all of the Emma Mills books. So now I've got Foolish Hearts, First and Then, and This Adventure Ends. I also finished picking up all of my Neil Gaimans, so I've got my illustrated copy of Neverwhere. It's my favourite Neil Gaiman book of all time. I also have the normal copy around, but I don't feel like I need to take both, so I'm going to take this one. I've actually decided I'm going to pick my favourite Neil Gaimans because I own loads and I feel like they're going to take up so much shelf space. So I think I might leave Smoke and Mirrors behind. And I might also leave The Sleeper and the Spindle because I love this book, but it's an awkward shape to fit on a bookshelf, so I think I might leave that one behind as well. I'm also thinking about leaving behind Norse mythology, so I'm going to put those in a maybe pile. I've got a maybe pile, don't worry. But I'm definitely taking Neverwhere just because it's my favourite, and the other ones I've already mentioned. I also found all of my Ashley Poston collection, so that's Geekerella, which I loved. I've also already packed the sequel, which is like The Princess and the Fangirl or something, because it was at my dad's. And then I also loved Heart of Iron because my favourite movie ever is Anastasia, and this is a sci-fi retelling. I think the sequel is either out or is coming out soon, so I definitely want to pick that up as soon as I can. So I want to have this one as well because I'll probably have forgotten the plot of this one by the time I get that one. I'm also debating taking my Rainbow Rowell series, but I also have every book she's ever written, which is quite a lot, but I also know if I'm in the mood to read Rainbow Rowell, I won't settle for anything else. So I need to think about those, and it's the same with Patrick Ness, who I love, and Jandy Nelson, so, oh, and Sarah Bernard? Is that her name? Just, I'm gonna have to think about those while I'm going through these ones. I grabbed the exact opposite of OK, which is the first to A Girl Called Shameless, and I just think these covers look really pretty together, like, and also their spines, so I'm gonna take those definitely, I think. I grabbed The Hate U Give so that I can put it next to on the come up because this is pretty, but I'm not set on taking The Hate U Give because I loved it, but I've read it and I don't feel like reading it anytime soon, so I might put this in a maybe pile too, but I'm not sure. So I'll just put it in a maybe pile. This is not a good time to be indecisive, is it? I did end up grabbing the A Darker Shade of Magic trilogy because I was looking at them and remembered quite how much I liked them, and I also just like their colour scheme. This is kind of my aesthetic, so I think I might bring those if I can justify it. I also grabbed When Dimple Met Rishi, which I'm also going to put on my maybe pile. So some other options in my maybe pile are both of these by Maggie Harcourt? I don't know. These are quick, easy reads that I actually loved. I loved Unconventional and then I loved Theatrical, so I think I'm going to take both with me because I need to read anything she releases now, and I just also think they look nice together and they bring me joy to hold and they bring me joy to take with me, so I'm going to take these ones definitely, I think. I'm also debating whether to take the A Court of Thorns and Roses series because I really want to reread them soon, but I cannot bring the A Throne of Glass series because although I love them, they take up so much room, and also I think I've lent them to someone. But I have a couple here, but they just take up too much room, and I don't know if I can justify bringing this series and not that series. And also, these aren't hard to read like on my phone or anything because I've read them before, and I probably would only want to reread A Court of Mist and Fury. And they take up so much room, and they'd also mean, I feel like I would also have to bring A Court of Frost and Starlight. So I don't know. So also going on my maybe pile. My maybe pile's getting pretty big. Whoops. I'm also debating taking Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe because I loved this when I read it, and it's a really floppy paperback, which always brings me a lot of joy. But I read it such a long time ago that I hardly remember it anymore, and I feel like I might be in the mood to reread it soon, so I'm debating taking this one. I'm also going to take my favourite fantasy of, I think, last year, which is Children of Blood and Bone, and also because, again, this is my aesthetic. I love this so much, and I think the sequel's due to come out either the end of this year or next year. I feel like they might have pushed it to next year, but I want to have this with me because it's so beautiful and I loved it so much. I also grabbed The Daughter of a Pirate King because I read this, I think, last year, and I really want to reread it because I really want to buy the sequel, which is like something like A Daughter of a Siren Queen, but I desperately want that one. And then I'm also debating bringing my Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue and then the Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy because I literally love these so much. I won't put you through the really painful process of me desperately deciding which of these I should take and what I shouldn't. So I'm going to go and be really harsh and try and debate with myself which ones I really want to take and which ones I'm actually likely to reread or that I desperately want to have in my room. So I'll be back with my final lineup probably. I've finished deciding and I think I've ended up with around 40 to 50 books, which is too many. This is too hard. Anyone else that's done this, can you tell me how you did this? Do I just take no books? Do I just take all of them and suffer? Like, what do I do? So I think I'm gonna just take these ones and see how it goes. So I've got 4 packed dads already, and then I have these ones, so I'll count how many I think I've got at the end. But first of all, I'll show you all the ones I ruled out of taking. And it hurt my heart a little bit to rule them out, but I've done it. So, the first one that I consider taking, but I'm not going to take, is The Night Circus. Because I love this book, but I don't think I'm going to reread it anytime soon. Which is pretty much the tale of all of these books. And then I've also decided not to take any of my Sarah Barnard. Is that how you say her name? I don't know, but that is Beautiful Broken Things and A Quiet Kind of Thunder, because as much as I love these, I definitely don't think I'm going to be in the mood to reread contemporary anytime soon. I know in winter I don't typically want to do that kind of thing, so I don't think I'm going to miss them. I also, with a heavy heart, decided not to take Illuminae, which I'm still really debating in my brain, because I love the entire series, but I don't own the other 2 because I read them from the library. And also, this is really heavy. It's the heaviest book I've ever held. It's heavier than my 1,000-page books, which makes no sense. I think it must be because of the ink on the pages. I don't know. So it's with a really heavy heart that I leave this one here. After a hard argument with myself, I also decided to leave What If It's Us, because I think I've got enough contemporary with me, especially because I'm not sure I'm going to be in the mood to read this kind of contemporary anytime soon. I don't know. I'm gonna leave it, and then if I come home and I decide I want it, I can pick it up. For the same reason, I decided not to take From Twinkle with Love, and therefore also decided not to take When Dimple Met Rishi. So I'm also deciding to leave behind both of my Jandy Nelson books. So I'm leaving behind The Sky Is Everywhere and I'll Give You the Sun. Although I really love both of these books and highly recommend them, I just think they're more summer reads. I think I'm gonna have to come back at the end of February or March so that I can swap to more of my spring summer books that I like to read. I also ruled out On the Come Up because I just don't feel like I'm going to want to read this anytime soon. I definitely want to read it eventually, and I want to read it soon, but not so soon that I think I need to take it with me, and therefore I'm also leaving The Hate U Give. I'm aware I'm leaving behind a lot of TBR books, but my feeling is that if I read things and decide I don't want them to stay, I can swap them. And I think that might be a better way to do it. I'm not sure. I'm also leaving behind Lola and the Boy Next Door. I'm also leaving A Court of Thorns and Roses behind, the whole series as well. I think I've cut out 16 books that I debated taking, which was really hard but also isn't enough. So as we go through here, you might see me decide not to take any of these as well. I've decided to take both unconventional and theatrical because although I just said I wasn't in the mood to reread contemporary, I think because I originally read these in winter, in my brain they're more wintry contemporaries. I don't know, I read both of them in autumn weather and I just think they're really cozy to me. I don't know why, but I want to take them. I also decided, but I'm still vaguely on the fence about taking The Astonishing Colour of After because, again, I can't see me being in the mood to read this anytime soon because it's almost too emotional and I have enough stress going on at the minute. Actually, I'm going to leave, look, I'm leaving it and I'll just pick it up and come home when I want to read it or buy the Kindle version. That is also a thing I can do, I can buy a Kindle version. Oh my god, I'm so rubbish. But I think I'm going to take Alex and Eliza. I also decided to keep The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue and The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy, is that right? Yeah, because they're adorable and I love them. I decided to take all of the Grishaverse series that I own because I want to. I also decided to take all of my Rainbow Rowells, which is dumb because I just said I'm not going to want to reread contemporary, but there is always room in my heart for Rainbow Rowell, and if I wake up and I'm like, I want Rainbow Rowell warm fuzzies in my heart, then I just need that day, and then I need them. Do you think this is how criminals justify things? I also especially really want to take this copy of Fangirl. I have two. I have a paperback because that's the one I originally read, but my friend gave me this because look away if you don't like anything being done to books. Because we do these book swaps where we go through and we write like all over the books in the margins, and we like do illustrations and like what we think, and we never block out the writing or anything, don't worry. I'm trying to find an example of a quick illustration. Like, she drew this of Kath, which just makes me giggle, and this just makes me really happy, and she obviously isn't coming to uni with me, so it makes me feel like I've got a little bit of her with me, so I'm definitely taking that, and I will hear nothing else about it. As previously said, I'm going to take all of my Emma Mills books because there's only 3, and these 2 are unread, and this one is just pretty, and I just like it with me. And also, again, I've got rid of some contemporaries, but then if I do want to read them, I've still got a couple. They're just my more main priority contemporaries, or ones that I think I'm going to be more in the mood for. Because I've already packed one of my Ashley Poston books, The Princess and the Fangirl I think it's called, I'm going to take the original book of that series, which is Cinderella, and then also Heart of Iron, because winter's a good time for some sci-fi, and I don't have any sci-fi otherwise, so I'm going to take this one, I think. See, I was debating keeping All the Light We Cannot See, but I'm actually just this minute deciding to put it in my leave here pile. Is that a wise decision? Yeah. Yeah, no, it's fine. That's not... I'm very rarely in the mood for historical fiction, and then if I want it, I'll know I want it, and therefore it won't be hard to get it. Right? I actually whittled down my Neil Gaiman collection, which makes me really sad, but I think it's the right thing to do. So I'm going to take The View from the Cheap Seats, Trigger Warning, and Good Omens, because then I've got 2 short story collections that are unread, I've got a reread, and then I'm also taking my illustrated copy of Neverwhere because it's one of my favourite books of all time, and I feel wrong being without it. And also, it's so pretty, I can't leave it behind, I'm sorry. I am also going to take the Lunar Chronicles series with me because I have been thinking I want to reread them for ages anyway, and I just adore this series, and I haven't reread them since I read them originally, and I need to, and this is a good time of year I think for me to do that, so I'm definitely taking those. And then that also means I've got all of my Marissa Meyer books, I think. As I previously said, I'm going to keep The Colour of Lies so that I've got this kind of book if I want it, and also just because I am quite interested in this, even though it's not my type of thing at all, and it's literally just because of the synesthesia, but I'm interested to see how that's going to play into a book, so I reckon I'll actually read this one fairly soon, especially because it's October soon. See, these were in my keep pile, but I'm thinking about leaving them. No, I'm going to have to take Children of Blood and Bone. Yeah, I can't leave Children of Blood and Bone. I'm so bad at this. Should I leave Aristotle and Dante? I'm so sorry. I told you I wouldn't put you through this process. Okay, now I'm going to keep Aristotle and Dante, am I? When am I going to reread that? No, right, I'm going to keep Aristotle and Dante. Therefore, I need to get rid of something else. Okay, so I'm going to leave behind American Gods because I already have a Neil Gaiman reread. Does that sound fair? I think that's fair. And that's also a big book as well to leave, so that's fine. So then I also decided to keep The Smoke Thieves and A Study in Charlotte for my TBR. I'm also going to take The Daughter of a Pirate King so that I can pick up the sequel soon, and I think I'm probably going to want to reread this first, and also again, floppy paperback. Also Aristotle and Dante. Honestly, if you want me to read a book, just get me it in a floppy paperback form and I'm so much more likely to read it. It's terrible. I'm also going to keep Heartless with me and A Blade So Black because then I'm stocked up on some retellings, which I feel like I'm going to want fairly soon, so I think this was a good plan. I'm also going to take the exact opposite of OK and A Girl Called Shameless so that I can read this one soon and keep them together because they're pretty together. I decided to take the A Darker Shade of Magic series because they're my aesthetic and I can't leave them behind. We all decided to take Vicious with me because I think this will be good for October, and then if I desperately wanted to have the sequel, I can read that one then as well. And then I've also decided to take A Sorcery of Thorns. Okay, no, I'm gonna not let myself look at my bookshelves, so I'll see a book I want to take. She says as she scans her bookshelves.
Oh no, I don't want to take that. No, no. No, right, no, I'm not allowed anymore. I'm debating taking The Cruel Prince and the Wicked King. No, I'll reread them when the next one comes out. That's a fair deal, right? Yeah, right, no, right, no.
Altogether, I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 44 here, which means I have 48 total. That's still too many. Oh no. Right, no, it'll be fine. I'll just suffer. I'll just suffer. It'll be fine. If there are any books you see that you think I'm making a huge mistake by leaving them, please let me know and I will come home and grab them when I can. If I've left your favourite book behind, please let me know. Please tell me why I should read them. And don't fuel my hoarding tendencies. So yeah, or if there's anything I've taken that you don't think I should take with me because I don't sound like I need it, also please let me know. If you like this video, click the like button because that kind of makes sense. If you'd like to see more videos from me, please subscribe. Thank you for watching this video, especially if you're still here. Thank you for spending time with me, and I will hopefully see you again soon in a different setting. Bye! I hurt so badly. I'm an indecisive wreck.